he was aware that the elder to whom he was loyal had become the magic tower master. So in this world, if they don't betray, they would get betrayed and ask him who he thinks taught him about that world. And it was the elder who taught him that the winners are always the truthful ones. He also told him that the losers are always sinners, so in that case, he would be remembered as the sinner. And he was about to destroy his mana when he heard the footsteps. Iceland was standing behind them, and she used the limiter return lock. He wondered who she was and how she got there. Theta asked her if she was the mercenary who tried to become one of the 7 magicians and wondered how she could use her magic in this place. The guards were shouting to get her as she entered the magic tower unauthorized, so they couldn't let her get out. For the sake of the magic tower, Evergrande Revolution must succeed, and she told him they don't have time for this. She told him to follow her as she arranged the way out of there while Evergrande was stunned as he was being teleported and was angry as that weasel almost ruined his plan. While he was trying to get back there to teach her a lesson and complete his plan, the guard rushed toward him and said that there was a letter for him. He said that he would read it later as he was busy right now, so the guard explained that it's from the 4th Prince Kaiser, so he stopped. Kaiser was in his secret basement and called him and asked why the sudden call while the prince asked for the update and progress in the magic tower. He said they would successfully capture the tower within the day, then announce a new magic tower master tomorrow. He thought it was tremendous and instructed him not to return to Avalon in that case and to stay in the magic tower for the meantime, as it would be hard for him to get in touch. He wondered if something happened, so he explained that the hiding place of the 3rd prince and the Holy Grail had been discovered. The divine object of Hubalt has been found in the Imperial Archives of the Avalon, so Emperor Marcus must have leaked this information to the Hubalt Empire. It seems like there will be a full-blown civil war in Hubalt, and between the Emperor and Pope. Whoever gets the Holy Grail will possess clear-cut rights and authority, so they wouldn't leave any leaf unturned to possess the Holy Grail, and if his father took advantage of them, war would soon break out in the continent. If the war breaks out in the continent, it could last as long as a decade after the Great Judgment of the Sun trial for the 3rd prince. The Emperor Marcus will be held accountable, so he wouldn't be able to do anything until the war ended. That's why he was planning on leaving the Empire. That way, he could move more quickly, so Evergrande asked him how he would control Joshua if he left the Avalon Empire. He wasn't sure if Heimdall would approve either, but he told him not to worry about this as even without him, both the 1st and 2nd princes would be highly wary of Joshua after his action this time. Eliminating an enemy as an enemy was the ideal way to go, so he told Evergrande to continue with the plans so there were no hitches and assured him that he would ask for Heimdall's permission. The hole appeared on the wall from which the protagonist appeared and was startled to see Cain waiting for him there. He wondered why he came there and what happened to the knights behind him. Cain uttered that the Lord of the Knights was overpowered and Duke Tremblin had one inside, so he was worried that something might happen to him. He tried to follow, but the Royal Knight stopped him, so there was nothing he could do, so he wondered if he knocked them out because of this reason. The protagonists don't care about it as they do not have time for this, so they should get out of there immediately, which startled him, and he wondered if he was talking about escape. Cain asked him if he could handle Duke Tremblin and Viscount Airy, who went inside a moment ago and said touching nobles would only bring trouble. Joshua asked. He took down the Royal Knights but still said that and explained that he was wrong as he did not want to cooperate, so he had to escape. His knights asked if he meant this was all set by someone, so he told him that Guy used the Emperor to move Duke Tremblin and Airy, so they now had a reason to arrest him. But he stated that they couldn't keep running forever. The protagonist agreed with him, but if they harmed the envoys sent by the Emperor on his order, they would turn into traitors in a moment. But surrendering and explaining isn't an option, and he was bothered by Asmodeus's words as he said they would see each other someday, and he was looking forward to the day they met again and called him Armament. As he remembers, Armament was the ruler of the demon realm and was quite literally the vessel of the demon god. According to Asmodeus, it might not just be a continental taboo but a greater sin, and he thought that escaping right now would be better because they don't know Luja's identity. Cain asked if the guy he mentioned was Prince Kaiser and whether they were sworn enemies in their past life, and he thought he was persistent in tormenting him. When he opened the door, he was stunned to see many knights waiting for them there, and the knights informed him that he was not allowed to leave this place according to the Emperor Marcus' orders. If he disobeyed, he would be charged with treason, and Cain thought it was getting severe because at least 10,000 soldiers were needed to stop them. The protagonist never thought that Emperor Marcus would be disgusted by his uncovering the truth about the royal family, but such action merely tarnishes the dignity of the Britain family. The Duke appeared from behind and suggested giving up and either surrendering according to the Emperor's orders or presenting his neck before his sword. Cain thought his presence was enough to create this much pressure, and wondered how he broke through and escaped that monster. So he reminded him that he was Lord Joshua Sanders, and the Duke asked if he chose the latter since he was ready to fight. The Duke decided to offer his condolence to his father in advance because he would lose his son. Joshua thought things were going in an undesired direction and wondered if he had to become a tyrant by breaking his promise to Icarus to sit on the emperor's throne. He raised his sword toward him, and the knights were surprised as they could sense the murderous aura and wonder how someone emitted it. All the knights fell on the ground, and Duke Agnes appeared, and Cain was pleased because a great demon had appeared. Tremblin didn't expect that he would show up like this and knew, although he might be worried about his lineage. He said that he came here as ordered by the emperor, so he should have a full grasp of their situation. Or does he intend to defy the emperor's will? Agnes asked if a father would act before his son on such a matter, but the knight suggested he think of his family as this was a matter of personal choice. As he's there, they want him to reconsider it once more, and Tremblin also told him to look at them as this wasn't just his personal, so he requested to step aside. But Agnes asked them if he had to say it twice, so they told him to sheath his sword, and the protagonist wondered why he was doing this as he was just the mere child of a concubine. The second one is to be kicked out of the family and never sought him out even once in his previous life, but now he sees him grown up, he feels some unjustified resentment. Viscount Airy arrived and clapped as it was such a lovely family reunion and said there was no reason for them to hesitate since they knew their intentions. He stated that they should do their job and eliminate the traitor, so they rushed to attack them. But Agnes blocked their attack while Tremblin got to their back and attacked them. The protagonist saw him and asked for the magma's power to protect him. His sword was on fire, and with the explosion, he was thrown back. Cain wonders how that explosion occurred and asks if he is okay, while Duke Tremblin is also stunned, wondering what happened. The protagonist asked if he assumed he ran away because he was scared of him or maybe because he was young. He underestimated him. Before wondering what to do with Duke Agnes, he should be worried about how to capture him, and he tells his father that he doesn't want to cause any more trouble to the Agnes family. He has lived like that until then and plans to keep living like this. He calls his knight and tells him that they need to get out of there quickly and create an escape route. Cain accepted the mission, and Duke Tremblin reminded him that he told him that if they wanted to escape from there, they must surrender according to the emperor's order, or he must die by his sword, so he told them to choose one of the two, so he rushed toward them to kill them, but Agnes stopped him. He requested him, but he said this would be enough, so he wondered if he was resisting the emperor's command and said that the emperor's command was above all else in the Avalon. Agnes said that under the law, everyone should be equal, and that's why their country isn't progressing, while the knights also rushed to stop Joshua. Cain attacked them and made his way. He thought that the royal knights had gotten more assertive, but he had become quite strong, too, and he threw them away. He suggested a swing of Cain's Agnes's greatsword, but other knights rushed toward him and told him to surrender his weapon and arrest the criminals. Cain uttered that this was getting too intense, and the royal knights were much more robust than they were in Cromwell, so they should try to break through somewhere else. He said there was no need to go toward the main gate, but Joshua said if they ran away like this, it would look like they were guilty of something they didn't do. He told him to step aside, and he used his mana voice and told them to stop, as from now on, anyone who tried to block them, regardless of rank or status, would be killed. Their consciousness was fading, and they all fell to the ground. Viscount Airy rushed to and asked if it was Auror thought he had such a convenient ability, and told him to sing a lullaby for him, too. He rushed and attacked Cain, who was thrown away, but when he reached to attack the protagonist, he stopped him using his spear. Airy asked why he was hesitating when he knew how to end this situation and if he was terrified that the world would call him worse. The protagonist attacked him and cut his arm, so Airy asked why he didn't cut his head, and he replied that it was not suitable to cut off everyone's heads. He uttered that he had cut off his arm, so it would be better if he attached it quickly and stopped chasing him now. Airy smiled and thought he was unexpectedly kind, so he let him go, since there was no one to stop him while he was leaving with Cain. He reminded him what he said when they met in Reinhardt. Captain Rod apologized to the first Prince Kaiser in the Imperial Palace duty room as in the Avalon land. Especially in the Imperial Palace he protected, such a disgraceful incident occurred. He failed to notice it and couldn't stop it, so he deeply resented himself, but the prince told him not to be too hard on himself as nobody could know about the incident with his brother, so he should not bear the guilt and focus on recovering quickly because Avalon needs the head of Lordnates, and he stands to leave since he has an important matter to attend to. He told him not to strain himself on his account and to rest while the prince was leaving. Valmon told him to take care of himself. Valmon asked him about Joshua, and what would happen to him. So he told him that he had been branded a traitor for defying the emperor's decree and had been stripped of his noble status. So now he is nothing more than a fugitive with a bounty on his head. While leaving, the prince told him to take care of the head of the Lord Knight. After he left, the head of the Lord Knights asked if it was interesting, and he wondered what he was talking about. So he elaborated that a boy, not even 20, had stripped up the greatest knight empire of the continent. He couldn't believe the rumors that Joshua single-handedly defeated the mercenary king, but he surpassed him and withstood the assault of Duke Tremblin and Viscount Airy. Furthermore, he brilliantly escaped through the royal gate and believed he might be the first in the continent to achieve such fame before turning 20. He was undoubtedly inspiring many, which was a great fortune for the empire as there were many talented young individuals. Valmon uttered, but now he is a traitor, so Rod said that's why he was taking responsibility for the situation and stepping down. He wondered what he was saying and why he would resign, so he explained that, as he said, for the sake of the young talents of the empire, it was time for an older man like him to step aside. So he wished that the next leader should be Valmon, and he told him that even if he refused, he shouldn't blame himself as he knew better than anyone that he might not be ready. While pondering, he remembered the protagonist told him that breaking one's limit requires motivation, so he should set a goal for himself so the position of head of the royal kites might be worth aspiring for him. His pupils dilated as he decided about which he was confident, so he said he would carry all the burdens the captain bore. Meanwhile, Duke Agnes was tied in front of the emperor, who asked him if something unusual had happened during his absence as he seemed to have caused quite a mess, unlike his usual self. Agnes said that he had gone too far this time, and the emperor was enraged and asked if he realized how many times he had let things slide. But Agnes said that what he had let slide was the matter of the fourth prince, who stood by and watched as the third prince was turned undead. Tremblin told him to mind his manners as he was in front of his majesty, so Agnes commented that he was also no different from him. Demons like him wouldn't care about the taboos of this continent as they were planning to use the undead to turn the Hubalt Empire into a battleground. They formed a secret alliance with the Swallow Empire and subdued neighboring countries at a time when Hubalt was already torn between the Emperor's faction and the Pope's faction. And now the holy grails that could fan those flames had appeared, so he was sure the Emperor must have been pondering whether Joshua has overcome Cromwell and faced the sun's judgment would be a boon or a bane, so he eventually decided to remove his unpredictable variable. To make this country, Avalon shines forever in the name of the Briton, so it might be for his selfish desire while the Emperor was furious and told him that he had crossed his line. He asked if he was thinking of turning on him, betraying the Empire, and threatening to destroy his family and clan, and the Duke glared at him. The Emperor said he was sure that he was not that ruthless, so he told him to calm down as long as his plan went smoothly. He had no intention of harming his child because his child shines the brightest in crisis. He commented that if his child achieves another feat outside of Avalon, he promised to call him back to Avalon personally. Agnes asked the Emperor if he ever thought on the contrary that he might be the sword pointing toward them, and this made Emperor Marcus ponder. Meanwhile, in the forest of Avalon, Ash is angry at him and cursed because he told him to follow him as the continent's best servant, throwing him out of the palace without telling him where to go. He told him to wait until he met him again, and the carriage started shaking, and the man asked for help. Ash came out of the carriage and asked what was wrong while the man ran away, calling for help. He wondered what was happening, but he was stunned when he saw a girl who looked at him and said that he looked better than the child of Elrondis. He recognized her as it was his former master, the black dragon Krevas in human form, and wondered why it was there. She told him it was not the time to waste away leisurely and asked him if he knew who Joshua was chasing after, but he didn't know. So the black dragon approached him while he was shivering and said that it's the contractor of Asmodeus, Zerath Dick Orvis, who is the betrayer who made his elf race suffer, believing him to be a close friend, which stunned him as he was the one who sacrificed not only his clan but also his own life to protect their secrets. The black dragon pities him, tells him that humans are inherently selfish and full of desires, and tells him that the one who betrayed him and took root of the world tree was him. He suggests he do what he must instead of pursuing the Zerath since he knows the truth. He told him that the original stone was replacing the root tree of the world, but it wouldn't last. He asked him where is Zerath. So the dragon said that he was in Aya's Grand Plain. It's the tower humans built after stealing from them. While Theta and Iceland were near the river, he said that the current was too strong so that he couldn't take her with him, so she had to go on her own. But they couldn't do that, so they had to find a way back. While discussing it, the mage found them and wanted to catch them as it was the new Tower Master's order, so they went in a circle to suppress them in one go and produce the stone rain. At the Avalon Empire Floral Palace, Ellen was happy and couldn't believe that the princess, who was on the brink of life and death, managed to move from her bed and regain her vision. It truly feels like a divine blessing, and the princess also agrees as if it were a miracle. But if she could remember what happened to her, it would be better. She asked her if she still hadn't gained her memories, so she clarified that she couldn't remember anything after age 10. But every time his name is mentioned in the royal palace, her heart hurts, so she asks Ellen if the captain of the royal knights is also named Joshua. Meanwhile, at the Avalon Empire capital, Akkadi, they were searching for him as there was a high possibility he might be there and Icarus was hiding. The knights instructed others that, given the situation's nature, they should immediately use flares to spot them, call for backup, and refrain from acting alone. Icarus rushed as the situation seemed more severe than she thought, so they needed to get where he was immediately while the knights saw her running away. The protagonist realizes that the murderer doesn't want Britain's power to weaken, as seeing how far it has driven him out suggests. Kane thought that gaining a solid foothold in the royal court was a poison, so they were in for more challenges ahead. Icarus entered the room and asked them if they had lost their mind and how she had become a wanted criminal after just a few days in Akkadi. She said that huge bounties had been placed on both Joshua and Kane's heads, and she pinched his ear and said that as his subordinates, they should lead him on the right path. She wondered how they would do that if they were like this, so he apologized and asked their general what they should do now. He told them they needed to get out of the capital first, so his knight suggested heading to Reinhardt, as he would like to live in luxury and be treated like a king rather than a criminal. Icarus said they should head to another country instead of Reinhardt, and he wondered why, so she said that the emperor might have considered that country in his plans. If he, the king of Reinhardt, became the enemy of Avalon, it would give the emperor a reason to invade, so he had to march directly to Reinhardt. The protagonist thought she was correct as they couldn't bring harm to that country, and if the news of this situation spread to the people of the continent known for their magic, the moment he entered, it would worsen Reinhardt's image on the continent, and Icarus tells them that the political situation is also unstable. At every country's borders, especially those directly facing other countries, there is a massive accumulation of troops, which almost means the war is about to break out. Kane wondered if it meant they were preparing for a continental war, so she said there was a high possibility. Apart from the three empires of the three rivers, movements from two other countries are also suspicious, and he wonders which two countries they are. She uttered that one is the Thran Duchy of Duke Uravis, someone he is acquainted with, and the other is Terra. The knights asked if Terra meant the country known as the Kingdom of Magic, but wondered why they would. Joshua wonders, while the timing might differ, fate remains unchanged, and his knight is stunned, so he tells him that their destination has already been decided. He instructed them to quickly deal with what needed to be addressed first, the magic tower, the Aya's plane he spoke about. While they were discussing their plan, the door slightly opened, and the knight appeared, and Kane held his sword, wondering if they already detected their location. The protagonist instructed him to sheath his sword as it's okay because he is one of his few trusted comrades, just like them, and he was glad to see Katniss. He sincerely apologized to him since the Battalion 11th and 12th both wanted to follow him, but they could not leave the Empire, leaving their family behind, so he asked for forgiveness. Joshua told him there was nothing to forgive because he understood that, so he told him not to worry and to stand up. He thanked him and delivered the message he had brought for him as someone called the Assassin King came to their unit. She said she would head to Reinhardt first and take care of what needed to be done, so Joshua realized they received some more help. He gave him the letter, so he asked if it was also from the Assassin King, and Kat said that the princess had sent it and he was stunned. Kane commented that in these times, the princess sent a love letter to him and assumed that deep down, she also wanted to leave with him. She hit him and said that he should be aware of the situation, and she told him that they had been delayed for too long, so they should depart from the Avalon. He agreed to depart while leaving. He told Katniss that though they wouldn't be together, he prayed for the divine radiant blessing to be upon him and all the members eternally. He also prayed for the blessing to fall on him and requested that he return alive as they await him. Meanwhile, at the magic tower, Evergrande was shocked, even if it wasn't the main body, because it impacted the life vessel, which is the source of life. He asked what happened in the secret chamber beneath the 4th Imperial Palace, and it was also unexpected for Barubaru as Joshua's spear was a demonic spear. He was shocked and asked if by demonic spear he meant the artifact of the demon, and he wondered how such a thing existed on this land. But the Lick Hinds told him there was no need to be so surprised because it was just the shell of the demonic device, and the sealed demon inside it was probably nothing significant, so that he would handle this matter. But the most important thing is the movement of the black dragon crevice, and Evergrande also heard that he was heading to this magic tower with an elf. He was shocked and wondered if it was a Lundus and realized that too many unpredictable variables were emerging when the completion of the army was near, which wasn't good. Evergrande uttered that he shouldn't worry as they had found the clue to the location of the primordial stone, Storm Wind, which they had been searching for. He asked if by storm wind he meant tempest. Then it's good, so they shouldn't delay. As soon as the coronation of his tower is complete, he should lead the undead legion and create the liches. He understood and wanted to tell him another thing. Recently, the information about Asheru van Britten from Petrin started spreading to the royal court. A storm of blood will soon blow over Edach Agnes and the Britten royal family, but Barubaru informed him that it was what even Heimdall predicted. What he was curious about was when the emperor learned that the princess of Avalon, who was believed to be dead, was in the Agnes Duchy, and he wondered what would be the emperor's expression. Meanwhile, at the royal infirmary, Captain Rod is sitting in bed and expresses to Prince Kaiser that he is deeply ashamed to face him. He explains that not only did disgraceful events occur in the royal palace he guards, but also in the entire land of Avalon. He confesses that he was clueless about these events and couldn't prevent them, which fills him with shame. Rod requests Prince Kaiser not to be too hard on himself, emphasizing that no one could have known about the matter concerning the third prince, Caislian. He urges Prince Kaiser not to feel overly guilty and instead focus on recovering because Avalon needs him. Standing up, Rod informs Prince Kaiser that he will excuse himself and advises him to rest comfortably without unnecessary worry for his sake. Balmung bows down and wishes Rod a safe journey back. He inquires about Count Joshua, to which Prince Kaiser responds that Joshua has been stripped of his nobility for defying the crown and is now a mere fugitive with a bounty on his head. Balmung acknowledges the information and Prince Kaiser leaves the room, instructing Balmung to take good care of Captain Rod. In response, Captain Rod asks if it's not fun, and Balmung seeks clarification on what he means. He states that a man who is not even 20 yet has shaken Avalon, the greatest knight empire on the entire continent. To be honest, he did not believe the rumors that Joshua had single-handedly defeated the mercenary king. However, Joshua got past him, and even the attacks of Duke Tremblin and Count Airy could not suppress him. After that, he proudly walked out of the royal palace's gates. He declares that Joshua Sanders will be the first to rise to the position of a star under the age of 20, and the boy is an inspiration to many. He expresses that the empire is fortunate to have so many young talents. Therefore, he announces that he is going to take responsibility for this mess and step down as the leader once and for all. Balmung asks what he is saying, questioning his decision to step down out of the blue. He reiterates that, for the sake of the Empire's young talent, it's time for an old man like him to step aside. He expresses his desire for him to become the next leader. He assures him that he won't condemn him even if he refuses because he knows better than anyone that he is not quite ready. Balmung reminisces about a memory where motivation serves as the key to pushing his limits. He emphasizes the importance of having a goal and asks if the position of the Royal Knight Order's captain is not something to aspire to. He states that he shall accept that and willingly carry the burden it entails. Meanwhile, Duke Tremblin presents Duke Agnes in front of the king, binding his hands with magic. The king questions whether Duke Tremblin has developed newfound fatherly love in that short time and remarks on the trouble caused, unlike his usual self. Duke Agnes admits he has gone too far this time, and is asked how many things he has turned a blind eye to all this time. Duke Agnes responds by mentioning that this time, he turned a blind eye to the fourth prince's deeds and questions who stood by and watched Prince Caislian be turned into an undead. Duke Tremblin, showing due respect to his majesty, defends himself by stating that he is not different and does not care about demons, demonic energy, or anything forbidden in the continent in the first place. He explains that the undead were used to draw the Hubalt Empire into battle, and there was a secret collaboration with the Swallow Empire to subdue its neighbors, in a situation where Hubalt was already intensely opposing the Emperor and Pope factions. The Holy Grail even appeared in the midst of all this. He reflects on the troubles he must have faced, considering Joshua, a significant variable who stopped Cromwell and initiated the Great Sun Judgment trial. In the end, he decided to eliminate that uncertain variable to ensure that the country Avalon would shine in the name of Britain forever. However, he admits that in reality it was to further his selfish interests. The king responds, stating that he is crossing the line, and questions whether he truly believes he can bare his teeth at him and turn his back on the empire. He asks if the person in question is willing to abandon his family and community. He expresses doubt, stating that he does not think so, as he doesn't believe he is capable of being so spiteful. However, he proposes making things easy, indicating that he has no intention of harming the person's child as long as their plan can be carried out successfully. He adds that furthermore, if his child is not the type to shine in times of crisis, and if the child accomplishes another feat outside the Avalon Empire, he will personally summon him back to Avalon. Duke Agnes asks if it has not occurred to him that the child might one day become a sword aimed at the Empire. After a while, in a forest in Avalon, High Elf Fifth Alundus Ash, the servant of Joshua Sanders, expresses outrage at the abuse he has endured. He recalls stating that he would serve the number one individual on the continent one day and questions how they could chase him out of the royal palace without even providing directions on where to go. He declares that they should wait and see if he ever encounters them again and demands an explanation for the current situation. A person runs towards him, urgently pleading for help. Ash asks them to tell him what's wrong and to come back. Suddenly, Black Dragon Crevasse appears, remarking that he looks even better. Ash is shocked to see her, and she informs him that this is not the time to idle around. She asks if he knows who the human kid named Joshua is after now. He expresses that he does not know much about that. She mentions the Asmodeus contractor, Zarath Dick Orvis, and the one he is so chummy with, referring to the traitor who brought Elf Flock to its current state. Ash questions whether Zarath is considered a traitor, stating that Zarath gave his life and his family's to protect their secrets. She comes closer, places her hand on his shoulder, and expresses pity, stating that humans are selfish and lustful from birth itself. She accuses Zarath of betraying him and taking the root of the world tree. She urges him to understand the truth about Zarath now, to stop looking for him, and to do his part. She mentions that the Genesis Stone is currently being used as a substitute for the root of the world tree, but even that won't last long. Ash inquires about his location and Zarath's whereabouts. She closes her eyes and states that he is in the Great Ayaz Plains, located in a place called the Magic Tower that humans built by taking what was once theirs. Meanwhile, at the Avalon Empire's Floral Palace, a servant named Ellen is serving tea to Princess Cershalyn Ben Britton. She expresses disbelief, stating that not only has the princess, who was on the brink of life and death, managed to move from her bed, but she has also regained her vision. Ellen considers it a divine blessing. Cershalyn Ben Britton acknowledges it as a miracle, but expresses her frustration at not being able to remember what happened to her. She mentions that she still has not regained her memories, especially those after the age of 10, and every time Joshua Sanders' name is mentioned in the royal family, her heart hurts. She then inquires whether the captain of the Royal Knights was named Joshua Sanders. Meanwhile, at the capital of the Avalon Empire, Akkadi, a soldier instructs others not to delay the search, emphasizing the high possibility that the person they are looking for is still in Akkadi. Given the nature of the situation, they are advised to use a flare immediately upon spotting the target and call for backup, refraining from acting on their own. The soldiers acknowledge the instructions. Ash secretly listens to them and moves to find Zarath Dick Orvis. He reflects that the situation seems more serious than he thought and realizes the need to reach the location of the general quickly. Meanwhile, Joshua Sanders remarks that it seems Emperor Marcus did not want Britain's power to weaken, and his actions, driving him out so far, suggest this intention. Kane comments that gaining a strong foothold in the royal court has turned out to be poison, and it appears they are in for more challenges ahead. Ash enters the room and questions if both of them have lost their minds, wondering how he became a wanted criminal after just a few days in Akkadi. He informs them that huge bounties have been placed on both the general and Sir Kane's heads, emphasizing that as his subordinates, they should guide him on the right path. He gestures to his ear, asking how they plan to do that in their current situation. Kane apologizes, and he asks Joshua Sanders what their plan is now. Joshua responds that first, they need to get out of Akkadi. Kane suggests heading to Reinhardt, preferring to live in luxury there like a king, rather than being treated like a criminal in Akkadi. Ash disagrees, stating that any other country would be fine, but not Reinhardt. When asked why, Ash explains that Emperor Marcus likely considered Reinhardt in his plans. If the king of Reinhardt became an enemy of Avalon, it would provide the emperor with a reason to invade, leading him to directly march to Reinhardt. Joshua Sanders considers that he's right, they can't bring harm to Reinhardt. Furthermore, if news of this situation spreads to the people of the continent known for their magic use, entering Reinhardt could worsen its image on the continent. Ash points out that the political situation is also unstable, with a massive accumulation of troops at every country's borders, especially those directly facing other countries, making it seem as if a war is about to break out. Kane inquires if this means they are preparing for a continental war. Joshua Sanders confirms that there's a high possibility. Ash adds that, apart from the three empires of the Three Rivers, movements from two other countries are also suspicious. Kane asks about the two countries and which ones they are. Joshua Sanders explains that one is the Esran Duchy of Duke Erebus, someone he is acquainted with, and the other is Terra. Kane questions why Terra, the country known as the Kingdom of Magic, would be involved. Joshua Sanders speculates that while the timing might differ, he asks if the fate remains unchanged. Kane is shocked and asks what he means. Joshua Sanders dismisses it and states that their destination is already decided. They need to quickly address what needs to be handled first. He mentions Ayaz's plane, referring to the magic tower. Just then, the door opens and Captain Kazes of the 12th Battalion of the Royal Knights arrives, stating that he is here. Kane moves to unsheath his sword and asks if they have already detected their location. Joshua Sanders instructs him to sheath his sword, and when Kane tries to say something, Joshua Sanders reassures him, stating that Kazes is one of his few trusted comrades, just like Kane. He greets Kazes, who bows down and apologizes, explaining that both Units 11 and 12 want to follow him, but they cannot leave Avalon, as they have families to consider. Joshua Sanders reassures Kazes, saying there's nothing to forgive, and he understands everything. He tells Kazes to stand up, expressing his gratitude. Kazes continues, mentioning that he has a message for Joshua Sanders. The Assassin King came to their unit and stated that he would head to Reinhardt first to take care of what needed to be done. He hands Joshua Sanders a letter, and Joshua Sanders speculates that they have received more help, asking if the letter is also from the Assassin King. Kazes clarifies that this letter was sent by Princess Sershalin. Kane remarks that in these times, the princess sends a love letter to the general, suggesting that perhaps deep down, the princess also wants to leave with the general. Joshua Sanders requests everyone to be aware of the situation. Ash remarks that it seems they have delayed for too long and suggests departing from Avalon. Joshua Sanders agrees, stating they should depart immediately. As he moves to leave, he addresses Kazes, expressing his prayers for divine, radiant blessings to be upon him and all the members eternally, even though they won't be together. Kazes reciprocates the sentiment, wishing for blessings and urging Joshua Sanders to come back alive. Meanwhile, at the Magic Tower, a capped man expresses his great shock, emphasizing that even if it was not the main body, the impact on the life vessel, the source of life, raises questions about what happened in the secret chamber beneath the 4th Imperial Palace. The Asmodeus contractor, Likhein's Berber, explains that it was unexpected and caused by Joshua's spear, specifically a demonic spear. He clarifies that by demonic spear, he means an artifact of the demon, and questions how such a thing exists on this land. Berber reassures that there's no need to be so surprised, as it's just a shell of the demonic device, and the sealed demon inside is likely nothing significant. He asserts that he will handle this matter. More importantly, he mentions detecting the movement of the black dragon Krevas. He acknowledges this, stating he heard that Krevas is heading to the magic tower with an elf. Berber questions if it could be Elrunbus, expressing concern about too many unpredictable factors emerging at a time when the army's completion is near, deeming it unfavorable. He reassures him, stating not to worry as they have found a clue to the location of the primordial stone, Stormwind, which they have been searching for. Berber clarifies that he means the Tempest, and he approves. He instructs without any delay, as soon as the coronation of his tower is complete, to lead the Undead Legion and create the Liches. He acknowledges, stating that he understands. He adds that there's another thing he wanted to share. Berber inquires about it, asking what it is. He informs him that recently, information about Asheru Ben Britain from Petrin has started to spread to the royal court, and a storm of blood will soon blow over the Agnes Duchy and the Britain royal family. Berber comments that this is something not even Heimdall anticipated, but he expresses curiosity about what the Emperor's expression will be when he learns that the Princess of Avalon, believed to be dead without a doubt, is in the Agnes Duchy. After a while, a convoy enters the forest, and Princess Asheru Ben Britain sits inside the carriage, contemplating how much she hates the political marriage she never wanted. She feels like she's being sold off and living as someone else's tool, expressing a preference for death. Suddenly, knights attack the convoy, and soldiers engage in battle. The soldiers identify it as an ambush and order the guards to move forward and protect the princess. A guard approaches Princess Asheru Ben Britain, urging immediate escape and asking her to follow him. However, someone attacks and kills the guard. Princess Asheru Ben Britain sits down, covering her face, and suddenly Seta appears in front of her. The scene shifts, and Princess Asheru Ben Britain wakes up in her room, realizing she has had the same recurring nightmare again. It remains a nightmare that never becomes familiar. She gets up from bed and ponders what it could possibly mean. Just then, there's a knock at the door, and she wonders who it could be at this hour. She considers if it could be Joshua. Quickly, she goes and opens the door. Commander Chiffon, the direct knight of the Agnes Ducal House, stands there. She questions why he is here and what brings him to her. He informs her that Duchess Vanessa wishes to see her, or, if he should address her by her real name, Princess Asheru Ben Britain. Meanwhile, in the tower, people congratulate Evergrant on becoming the new Tower Lord, expressing wishes for the light of truth to shine brightly upon their new lord. Evergrant sincerely thanks everyone for welcoming him, acknowledging that he has carried the burden of the tower for so long. He declares their intention to cleanse all the stagnant water of Ian Turn Murray and break free from the barren plains of the Ayas Plateau. He envisions transforming the entire continent into a world solely for magicians, more magnificent and splendid than the Hollow Terra. Evergrant proclaims the founding of a magic empire across the continent under the name of the new 9 stars, Evergrant Con Asphalt. The people shout, "Live long the first 8th class Grand Mage," and express their admiration for the hero of the tower, Evergrant, one of the 9 stars. Evergrant reflects that it's now time to select a lick from among those magicians to lead the Undead Legion, forming a legion more formidable than any army. 7 magicians, left Scorpino of the Void, hold a magic ball and discuss the situation. He mentions that it seems Seta and that mercenary mage have slipped through their fingers, and they request permission to handle it themselves. After a while, Joshua Sanders, Kane, and Ash arrive at Aya's Plateau. The guard at the portal gate asks them what brings them to Aya's Plateau and requests a badge proving their identity. Kane pretends to search for something in his pocket and asks where he put that thing. The guard adds that if their destination is the Mage Tower, knights are not permitted entry, and he suggests they turn back. Kane expresses surprise, mentioning that it's the first time he has heard of this. The guard explains that these are internal directives for the time being, and he asks for their understanding. Ash objects, calling it an abuse of power and stating that there's a limit to everything. Kane agrees, expressing frustration with the magician's arrogance. The guard questions the concept of arrogance and insists that, regardless of their identity, they are not allowed in, so they should turn back. Joshua Sanders intervenes, revealing that he has come in pursuit of becoming a magician. He expresses disbelief, questioning how someone with a robust physique like his can practice magic. Joshua Sanders challenges him, asking if he doesn't believe it and stating that he will prove it. He demonstrates his magma magic, causing fire to come out from his hand. He comments on the tremendous power displayed. The other guard intervenes, urging them to stop, as they risk setting the forest on fire. Kane expresses doubt, stating that Joshua Sanders is not just a complete fraud at this rate. Ash adds that he seemed suspicious from the start. Joshua Sanders clarifies that the magic he used is not a fireball, but a firewall. The guard questions if the firewall is not a 4th-class fire elemental magic, and if it was possible with just the incantation, indicating that it means Joshua Sanders is at least a 5th circle magician. The other guard cautions against being fooled, explaining that the mana holes used by knights go through a refinement process with the mana cultivation techniques held by each house. In that process, they can acquire unique traits, citing a precedent such as the flame trait knight King Erebus. Joshua Sanders questions if they still don't believe him and asserts that he will demonstrate one more time with a different attribute. He uses his magic and says, "This is the lightning wave." Just then, the system announces, "Attention all magicians. The hideout of Seta Arpheon White Sox has been located. All magicians are to immediately convene at the Tower of Trials and execute Seta and the accomplice mercenary magician aiding him." Joshua Sanders thinks about a mercenary magician named Iceland. The system instructs him to repeat after Seta. The guard mentions that Joshua Sanders had expressed his desire to become a magician of the tower, and now he's in luck. The other guard adds that if Joshua brings in those traitors he mentioned, they will do more than just accept him into the tower. He will receive a hefty reward. Joshua Sanders retorts, "Shut it, if they don't open these gates right now, he will break through them himself." When asked what he means, Joshua Sanders quickly moves forward and says, "Out of the way." He throws his magic on the portal gate, causing light rays to spread all around as it opens. After a while, at Aya's plateau, Tower of Trials, near the portal gates, a magical circle appears. 7 magicians, Zephyros of the Red Flame leading, say, "Charge," annihilate the traitor Seta and his accomplices. The knights move to attack, declaring it's for their new empire of magic. Inside the portal, they observe many monsters. They exclaim, "It's a giant." Zephyros instructs them to keep charging and not stop. He reassures them that this is the Tower of Trials, where magicians come to train, and what they see are all illusions. They can't possibly harm him. However, a knight uses the magic circle against a Bigfoot monster and declares that they are not illusions, they are real. Zephyros thinks about Seta, considering that if he has the power to alter the ancient magical circles, then this Tower of Trials should be made of them. He acknowledges that, no matter what, it's just a matter of time. They use the firewall magic to attack the monsters and burn them. The scene shifts to Princess Asheru Ben Britain waking up in the forest as water falls on her face. She asks, "Where is this?" Seta sits in the magic circle and informs her that they are on the 17th floor of the Tower of Trials. She questions what happened, and he asks if she does not remember. He explains that they were chased for 4 days and nights, running out of mana, and had no choice but to escape to the Tower of Trials. She looks at his face and asks about his eyes. He assures her that his eyes are fine. The issue lies with the destroyed circle, which is slowly recovering. However, he is uncertain when it will be usable again. He advises her to focus on recovering, mentioning that he is not sure if the tower's magicians have cast a magic interference barrier, but teleportation and communication are blocked, making it no different from being trapped there. She inquires if this means it's impossible to escape from the tower and suggests they have to fight and hold on until reinforcements arrive. Seta makes a magical star with his hands and reassures her, saying, "Don't worry, this tower is not something he can easily climb. It's not called the Tower of Trials for nothing." He explains that it's a tower created using ancient magical formations that no longer exist, used by magicians for training. While the tower is activated, various trials on each floor await the visitors, and the higher they go, the stronger the monsters and traps become. He states that they just have to keep avoiding them, moving up one floor at a time until the tower's magicians give up. She mentions that she heard that all these trials are just illusions. He informs her that not anymore. He made them as tangible as real ones. She asks if he modified the ancient magical formations by himself. He confirms that yes, he learned quite a bit since he is the administrator here. Although once it's activated, it goes beyond his control, which is a headache. With this, it's either them or them. She feels a vibration and asks about this vibration, noting that they seem to have followed them down here already. He inquires if they are truly one of the 7 magicians like him, stating that they are faster than he thought, and suggests they start moving. He mentions that now the only hope left is the reinforcements he mentioned. He believes they are an army capable of confronting the magic tower. She corrects him, stating that it's not an army. The reinforcement is just one person. He questions how a single person can possibly deal with so many magicians. She excitedly says if it's Joshua, it's possible if it's Joshua, one of the very best on the continent. He wonders if she is also from the Shua Shua Club, a fan club for Joshua that the female magicians created, and thinks his grave is going to be here. Meanwhile, the lizard monsters move to attack, but Zephyros uses the firewall magic to explode them. He comments that it's indeed the 7 magicians, and even if the monsters are real, they can't stop them. "Let's catch up with the traitors this way," he suggests. Zephyros states that the day to realize the tower's dream is not far, and with the 7 magicians and Lord Evergrant, they will surely establish the true magic empire. Scorpino suggests going straight to the next floor. Zephyros mentions that Seta, always resorting to tricks, and reaching class 7 means nothing. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and the soldiers run from there to save lives, asking what's happening. A soldier explains that it's an ambush. The follow-up forces are hit. They are warned to be careful, as it's that damned knight, the Avalon's spear. The soldiers run from there. Scorpino asks if it's the Knight of Avalon's spear. Zephyros says there should be only one. Joshua Sanders arrives and asks if the two are the commanders there. He offers them a chance to retreat now, assuring him that he will allow them to leave alive and cease pursuing Seta and Iceland. Zephyros uses his magic to attack, stating not to interfere with the tower's affairs. He expresses his intention to take this opportunity for revenge on Jack. Using the fire cannon to attack, Zephyros finds his attack blocked by Joshua Sanders, who wields a spear. Puzzled, Zephyros asks, "What is this?" Scorpino attempts to attack, but Joshua Sanders successfully stops his assault. He contemplates the spear, wondering if it's an artifact embedded with magic. However, he has never seen such a spell among the pyrokinetic ones. He questions if it is an ancient artifact. Some soldiers approach Joshua Sanders from behind, instructing him to unleash the Grand Cooperative Magic Circle to restrain the movements of that damned knight. Zephyros suggests to Scorpino that they recite their spells too, and send that guy flying with one strike. They begin reciting their spells, mentioning the dawn that brightens the morning and the moonlight that illuminates the night. Zephyros continues with the energy of the night sky's moon, asking it to become the ruby flame that turns everything to ash. Joshua Sanders swiftly moves and stands between them, pretending to yawn. He comments that their magicians are not suited for such battles, questioning who would be foolish enough to wait until a magician completes their casting. They are shocked to see him there, and Scorpino asks when he will come. Zephyros questions if he still thinks a magician is weak in close combat. Joshua Sanders attacks both of them, throwing them away. He mentions the spell armed with the 6th stage of spear art, the Wind of the War Divine. The Wind of the War's divine magic spell creates a storm, and soldiers start flying with the wind. Princess Ashru Ben Britain hugs Seta and asks why they are shaking the whole tower like this. She mentions that it seems they are intent on catching up with them, and she wonders if they can hold out until Joshua arrives. Seta reassures her that they can hold out. He explains that, except for him, the magicians were only interested in expanding their circles, and they haven't even come close to the trial tower, so they definitely won't easily conquer it. She understands and mentions that they won't be able to easily decipher the magic of ancient people as she can. Seta clarifies that the tower was not made by humans, it was made by dragons, and they set the rules of the tower. He adds that the trial tower gives a special reward each time he clears a floor. She wonders why they haven't received any rewards for clearing the tower so far. Seta explains that it's because she is with him, and the tower recognizes the subject. He mentions that it doesn't grant rewards repetitively to a subject who has already cleared a floor, and since he has set the trial tower record up to the 37th floor, there won't be any rewards for clearing any lower floors. She then asks about the reward given to the one who clears the final floor, expressing that it doesn't seem like it would be a normal reward. He mentions that he is not either, but according to what he heard from the Tower Lord, his grandfather, all truth, including the secrets of the tower, is hidden on the top floor of the tower. She asks if it is true. He moves to open the door and mentions that he does not believe it, but that's the legend that has been passed down. Next is the 30th floor, and the difficulty is going to spike, so he advises her to brace herself. They enter a new floor and move forward. She comments that it feels like some kind of hell and says it's creepy. He asks if this is strange and mentions that the 30th floor he knew was not like this, and he did not mess with any system that could change the environment. He wonders what on earth is happening. They are shocked to see Ash fighting with Berber. Ash asks if it is really him doing this and trying to annihilate their elf race. He demands an answer. Berber says that even if he told him the truth, there's nothing he could do but go back before he ends up killing him. He reflects that about a century ago, humans and elves lived together. However, as time passed, elves gradually lost their place in human society. Eventually, to guard their home and their people, elves hid from human eyes, fleeing to the farthest reaches of the continent. He considers the place, known only to elves, as the source of their life and all life since the beginning of time. It was where the world tree Yggdrasil hid, and they built a barrier so humans could not find them. He thinks that there, they worked desperately to rebuild their race. However, one day, someone stole the world tree's source of life and ran away. After that, Yggdrasil began to wither. Ash sits down and contemplates that the primordial stone tempest was maintaining Yggdrasil's life force, and when even that was not enough, as a condition for borrowing the evil dragon Crevass's power, he acted as his henchman for a long time and preserved the world tree's life force. He thinks all because of this damned Zerath Dick Orvis. He wonders who could have known he was the thief who stole Yggdrasil's life source. He would not have thought of it in the slightest. He asks why the hell did he betray them, and where is Yggdrasil's life source? Berber laughs and asks where the fun is in simply telling him that, and what fun it is. Ash uses his magic and says countless elves have died because of him, and he will die by his hand at all costs. However, he is thrown away, and it is